What is a conscience? Hi, I'm Mike Mason. This is the Immortal Combat Podcast. The Immortal Combat Podcast is the podcast arm of Viri Christi. Viri Christi is a Catholic lay apostolate devoted to help young men attain the full stature of Christ by growing strong in mind, body, and spirit. If you'd like to learn more about our work, you can check us out online at virichristi.com. All right, fellas, this is the Intro to Moral Theology, episode 21. It's hard to believe we're already in our final month of the Intro to Moral Theology. We've already been through 20 episodes. I know I've had a great time making those, and hopefully you guys have learned a lot as we've gone along. As we talked about a couple months ago, what separates a human act from an act of a human acts come from deliberation, right? They come from what makes us uniquely human, namely our intellects and our will. So last month, we looked at what it means for us to be free, because freedom resides in the will. So we have to have a clear understanding what freedom is, because that's also what makes us responsible for our actions. What we're going to turn our attention to in our final month of this intro is what a conscience is, because our conscience is in our intellect, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to look at conscience this month. So today we're going to talk about what a conscience is. Next week, we're going to talk about how your conscience works. Third week, we're going to talk about the different kinds of conscience you have. I know that might sound odd. Okay, I don't mean different kinds like separate, okay? But we'll talk about what kinds. And then last, we'll talk about forming one's conscience, which is important, especially for your guys' stage in life, because you guys are transitioning from boyhood. You're currently young men, right? You're adolescents, and you're transitioning into adulthood. So that one will be a real helpful episode for you. All right. But today we're going to launch into what a conscience is. Okay. So a conscience is the subjective aspect of morality. Now, when I say it's subjective, I don't mean morality is different for everyone, everywhere, all the time. If you guys recall, I know it's been a while now, but 5 months ago or so, 5 months ago, we talked about whether or not morality is relative, and I gave you guys some reasons why that's not the case. Okay, and if you forget what those reasons are, you guys can go back to episode 4 and check those out. What I mean by subjective is the moral law, guys. Remember we talked last week about natural law and stuff like that. The moral law is objective. It's outside of us. So the 10 Commandments, right? Honor God, honor your parents, don't murder, don't lie, don't steal, don't commit adultery. Those are laws that are they're written into the fabric of reality. They're outside of us. Those are the objective aspects of morality. Now, that's all fine and good. The problem is this. You have the moral law up here. You have the actual actions, thought, words, and deeds you're going to do over here. We need a connector between the two. Because the laws, guys, don't tell you how you're supposed to act. Okay? Because those laws have to be applied to your circumstances. So think about it. Thou shalt not lie. Okay. You're like, okay, I'm not supposed to lie. Great. All right. Then let's say you're in a situation where someone asks you a question. You have to determine if the answer you're about to say is truth or a lie. Okay. You have to determine, am I lying right now or am I not? Well, the action, the thing you're about to say, and the fact you shouldn't lie, they need a connector, and that connector is your conscience. The reason why it's called subjective is because it's inside you and you're the subject. All right. So what a conscience does is it helps you look up and go, all right, what's the law? What's the rule here? You think about it. How does that apply to my circumstances? This is what I'm supposed to do. Okay. That's what we mean by the subjective part. Okay. Now, I want to define that a little bit more clearly, but let's go talk about what conscience is not, and then we'll get kind of the bare bones down what conscience is. If you ask a common person in the street what a conscience is, you'll get tons of answers. I kind of picked out a few that I think you would get, and I'll explain why they don't make any sense. Okay. First, some people say conscience is majority opinion, right? You'll see this with our government, unfortunately. They'll do these polls, right? And they'll find out what people want to do. And then they'll say, well, whatever's morally right is what most people want to do. Okay. That's not true. Okay. In fact, in the state of Ohio, where I'm recording this and where I live, we legalized abortion and marijuana. Those are obviously immoral things. Okay. But majority opinion voted for them. Now, it is true. Majority opinion can be correct, but it doesn't always. Majority opinion doesn't determine what's right. Okay. It can reflect it, but it doesn't determine it. So majority opinion's out. Second, conscience is not a feeling or a gut instinct. Now, sometimes our feelings or our gut instinct, that part of us is like, I just kind of know what I'm supposed to do. I'm not really sure why, but I just know. Okay. Feelings and gut instincts can reflect conscience, right? They can be accurate, but they can also be out of touch with morality. Okay. And all of you guys know from our own experience that sometimes people's feelings or gut instinct, what they should do, actually proves to be wrong. Okay. And probably all of us have had that experience. So conscience can line up with conscience. Pardon me. Gut instinct feeling can line up with conscience, but not necessarily. Some people say conscience is just like Jiminy Cricket, right? Just some guy sitting on shore telling you what to do. That's not accurate. Some people say it's a myth. That's not true. If conscience is nothing but a myth, then that's the death of morality, because that means morality is a myth. But it's clear that's not the case. Okay. So these are some things you guys might hear. These are all wrong. So let's turn to what is correct. Conscience comes from a Latin word called conscientia, which literally means knowing with. Okay, knowing with. Conscience, that Latin term, feeds two ideas: consciousness, so you have awareness of what's going on, and conscience. Conscience literally means with science, knowing, or with knowledge. What is conscience? Conscience is a judgment of reason whereby the human person recognizes the moral quality of a concrete act that he's going to perform, is in the process of performing, or has already completed. That's out of the catechism. Let's break this down. It's not that tough. Where's your conscience located? In your mind, not in majority opinion, not in your feelings, not in your gut instinct. It's in your mind. Okay. And what does your conscience do? It recognizes the moral law and then applies it to what the catechism calls a concrete act. That's the thing you're actually doing. That means concrete, like the thing you're actually doing. You're basically, what your conscience does, it says, what am I supposed to do? Okay. Or after you've acted, should I have done that? So your conscience is what determines what the right thing is to do in this situation. How does the moral law apply to my situation? That's what conscience does, guys. Conscience is not some sort of special power like that's distinct from the intellect. It's not like, well, my intellect's here and my conscience is over here. No, conscience is in the intellect itself. It's in your mind. This is why humans have consciences and dogs don't, because dogs don't have minds. They have brains, but they don't have minds. When our minds, guys, can do two basic things. Our minds can do theoretical stuff. That's like studying physics and philosophy and stuff like that. Thinking about God, right? Theology. Our minds also are practical. Like, what should I do here and in here now? How do I make this piece of art, or how do I build a house? So our minds have a theoretical and a practical. The conscience is in the practical intellect. It applies what we're doing to this situation. Okay. So when people ask you in the future, what's a conscience? You can say, well, a conscience it's in my mind. And the job of the conscience is to help me understand what I should or should not do in this or that situation. That's it. That's what a conscience is. Before we sign off, we'll leave you guys with a quick meditation. Okay. Something to walk away with and think about over the next week. Sometimes people call conscience the voice of God. The reason why it's the voice of God is because God gave a conscience to everyone. And everyone has the ability to think about what is right and what's wrong. So whether a person's a Buddhist, a Catholic, an atheist, whatever, we all have a conscience. God gave us that so that we can determine what's right and what's good and do it, and shun that which is evil. Now, I want you guys to meditate on the fact on how important it is, since it's God's voice, that you follow your conscience, because your conscience is going to, if it's well-formed, we'll get to that later, lead you to that which is good. Second thing I want you guys to think about this week. Sometimes, as you know, our consciences can be wrong. Sometimes we don't discern what we're supposed to do. And I want you guys to reflect upon and give thanksgiving for the fact that God gave us the Bible. He gave us sacred tradition, and he gave us the magisterium, the church, to help guide us. So that, guys, sometimes when we make a wrong determination on what's right and wrong, we make the wrong call, God comes in with divine revelation through the church, and he can correct us. And God does that because he wants us to live good and happy lives. Okay. Like we said in month 1, not trying to boss us around, wants to help us live good and happy lives. So I'll leave you guys with that meditation. I hope you guys have an awesome week, and I look forward to seeing you next time. God bless.